that dream never died, but what really kind of transitioned it for us was when the pandemic hit. And if you go through our YouTube videos, you'll hear more about our story. But I lost my job in 2012, became a stay-at-home dad, supporting her, her dream of going back to grad school.
Mhm.
And so my way of coping with young kids was getting them outdoors.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Demi Learning Show. This is Gretchen Rowe, and I am so excited for this conversation today with the Martin family. I have to tell you, I've been waiting a long time to have this conversation. Our CEO, Ethan Demi, over a year ago said, "You've got to find this family. They live near you." And the irony of it is, we live less than 10 miles apart, but we've only met digitally thus far. We're going to have the opportunity today to talk about their story and how they took their kids on the road. David and Sally Ann, I'll let you all introduce yourself and then we'll get to it.
I'm David. And
Sally Ann Mertens. Yep.
as Gretchen said, we have 4 children, and today they're 16, 15, 12, and 10.
Mhm.
And, we've been married 19 years, been together 23 years. And so, really we've had to, or everybody points at me when they ask, how on earth did you come up with this idea?
To hike the
To
whole
hike the whole
Appalachian
thing.
Trail. Yeah.
And so it'd been a dream of mine since high school, more so because of the outdoors and then the challenge of it, just the physical challenge. But one way or another, life got in the way. And so it kind of get postponed, as most things do.
And then he married an indoor girl who had never camped prior to 2019.
Yep.
Not even
Oh my
once.
goodness. Sally Ann, I didn't realize that. I used to joke that my definition of camping was running out of toilet paper at the Marriott. So
Yeah. That was about my experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, zero camping. And then he worked on me for like 14 of our 19 years of marriage
Yep.
to convince
I was
me.
going to say that's quite a sales job to be able to talk somebody into doing that. So,
Is
Yeah.
that for the long haul?
Yep.
One of the great things is that, you know, that dream never died, but what really kind of transitioned it for us was when the pandemic hit, and, everything kind of shut down,
Mhm.
and yet the outdoors remained open. And if you go through our YouTube videos, you'll hear more about our story. But I lost my job in 2012, became a stay-at-home dad, supporting her, her dream of going back to grad school.
Mhm.
And so my way of coping with young kids was getting them outdoors. So I'd take them out to the forest, small adventures, playing in a river, hiking a small trail to a waterfall, whatever it might have been. And as they got older and their legs got stronger, those sessions or adventures gradually got longer, to the point that, once the pandemic came, we started hiking really as an entire family,
Mhm.
and then started to really launch into planning this dream of, how do we fit it in with work, with school, with church, with money, with, all these different aspects when you've got young kids at the house, and trying to figure out, as we all do as parents, how best to raise them.
Mhm. Yep. And one element that had to change, we did hike as a family, but I had to get comfortable being out with the kids on my own. And so it was during 2020, later in that year, that I started venturing out. We did Wilderness Wednesdays, is what I called it, with our homeschool. And we would do very short trails that I felt comfortable with. Um, as I started building confidence, we went further and further. And as someone who used to be a distance runner and kept getting injured, I really took to hiking because I didn't get injured. I was able to go long distances. I wasn't running by cars. I could take my kids with me. So I wasn't able to really bring them along running, except for when they were tiny and in strollers. So yeah, it was a nice adjustment to be able to be in nature, exercising.
so wait, but your youngest was like 5 when you started this adventure. 4, not yet 5.
When we start,
We
well,
started hiking.
yeah,
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 with
in
some serious
2020,
intent.
yes.
Yeah.
So 2020, Gideon would have been 4.5.
Wow.
And he's our only boy, and just had the endurance and the energy. As most people know, if you have sons out there, daughters can have energy too. But there's something special about those boys. So he could carry weight from a young age, and Yeah, he was doing just longer hikes from a very young age.
And granted, it was age appropriate, right?
Mhm.
So with the kids, with them being so little, I'd carry them in a backpack carrier, or gradually it progressed. Well, I want to carry my own water. I want to carry my own snacks, and giving them those opportunities to show that they can do it, and not pushing them past their limits when they're young, but
Right.
finding appropriate ways to get them involved, at their age appropriate level to carry
Mhm.
or do the distance was important. It was a good fitness goal for our family too. Like she said, just trying to incorporate them to an active lifestyle.
So about 2 years before we set out on the trail, so in 2023, was it 2024 that we started our monthly fitness goals?
Before
24. Okay, so a year before. We did each month we added a new fitness goal as a family. So I think January was like, I should have grabbed those off the fridge. I could show. I still have them. We had like a calendar printout, and we get a sticker each day for all 6 of us if we did our
step goal is
step goal or our 20 squats or our, whatever push-ups, and added something different each month, so that by December, before leaving for trail, we had 12 daily things we were doing to get our bodies strong. And I'm trying to think of what else we did. We did that. And also in 2023, we started working ahead in school, which we might get into later. I don't know, homeschooling wise. So we could take 5 months off. So it took us 2 years
So
to get
you did
5
not take school on the trail then?
Not like traditional school. There was definitely a lot of learning that occurred, but not in a traditional sense. No.
So rather than it being dedicated book or laptop application driven, it was more experiential.
Mhm.
As we're hiking through segments of the trail, there's history, there's flora and fauna, there's
Mhm.
physical activity, there's logistical planning that we incorporated them in.
It was
So
like project management. And
more or
like,
less,
yeah, time management, stewardship, a lot of math in your head with
yeah.
mileage calculations and percentages completed and distance to town.
And you're studying the weather too, because that's a large factor in how far you can go, or how soon you have to stop and take breaks.
And then just the school of interaction with people from all different backgrounds. So that's not something you can teach in books.
It took you a while to grow to this, Sally. And how about the kids? The girls were all like, yeah, we're in, or were there different personalities at play here?
Oh, for sure. They were more excited in 2020 when they were younger than when we got very close, because as the girls got older, the oldest being 14 and 15 when we started the trail, they had very deep roots here in Western North Carolina, deep friendships, and it was difficult for them to imagine leaving those for any amount of time. In our experience, being older, 5 months is nothing, 5 or 6 months, but for them, it felt like an eternity. They'd be missing out on everything. But all in all, they were on board. They just
Yeah.
weren't as over the top enthusiastic.
Yeah.
I'd say our least enthusiastic child, though, is Naomi. So she's our girliest girl, loves fashion, loves being comfortable.
Arts and crafts all the way.
Hmm. And so the thought of not being clean and not having her hair fixed and not having a cute outfit, when we would get to hostels along the trail and would get something called loaner clothes. So when you go to a place to stay and you get to wash your clothes, you don't have other clothes to wear while you're washing your clothes. So the hostel will give you, they just have like a closet of randomness.
Yeah.
But Naomi, go ahead.
No good.
Naomi would take such a long time perusing to find just the perfect thing. And she'd like tighten it up with a rubber band, or, roll the waistband down so the pants weren't too long, whatever it was. So she'd feel cute for a day. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing when my son left here. He had a 45-pound pack, and there was maybe a pound of clothes in there. It was food and, tent and sleeping pad and things like that. So now how did you all determine weight? Did everybody carry the same amount, or did
No,
they read a pack mule?
He definitely had the heaviest bag, as you should. You're the heaviest person like in our group because it's a percentage of weight.
Yeah, so we tried to follow the rule of thumb: nobody should carry more than 20% of their body weight. And so, even with Gideon at being 80 pounds, really only 16 pounds was really the max. We tried to keep, the target that we tried to keep his pack around.
But he, just sidebar, would ask to carry more.
Yeah.
So we would give him more and he would try it and typically never gave anything back. There were a couple of days where I had Achilles pain, and it was lessened when my weight on my back was less. So on that day, Gideon took my tent, which was 3 or 4 pounds that he took, the tent and the poles, which made a huge difference for me. And he didn't complain. He was so excited to be kind of my helper in that time. So, but yeah, the younger two carried 16 to 18 pounds.
No.
The next two carried around 25 pounds. And then I was in the 30s and you were usually at 40
to 50.
Yeah.
I know on the Continental Divide Trail, there were days where Duncan would go like 6-7 days with no water supply. I am assuming on the AT, the water supply is more abundant or more frequent. So did you all have to carry water for those adventures, or?
Just in the beginning, I think, for the most part. It was in Georgia, right when we started. They just hadn't had rain for quite a while. They were sort of in a drought.
They had a very dry winter and fall. And so when we started, they had a little bit of a heat wave. It was 70 degrees in February. And so we actually got sunburned in Georgia, which
on like day 2. We're planning.
Which we were not planning for. You think February, even in the South, it gets chilly and cold at night. And that wasn't until we hit the North Carolina state line.
But the water sources, I don't know that they weren't abundant in Georgia. It's just that we were so hot because the temperature was higher that we were going through far more than we anticipated for the spacing of the water. So we did have to carry water a few times, and we had 3-liter collection bags that David and I would carry. And I guess those were like 7 pounds each when they were full.
Right. But it would never last more than a day that we'd have to carry water.
Yeah. So did you all decide in advance the miles per day, or did it vary based on how the kids were performing and how everybody felt?
Yes. Both. You want to talk a little bit about that?
The
town to town.
Yeah, the entire course of doing a long trail is just a lesson in discomfort, right? Having to develop a plan, but then adapting on the fly. And I think that's a valuable lesson for kids to learn.
Even adults.
How to deal, us too, but how to deal with that discomfort. You can set a plan. You have to check it against it, and midday you might have to pivot and say, we just can't do any more today. So we'd come up with a daily mileage goal because you're stuck for the AT planning between resupply points. How far you're going to carry food before you have to go to a grocery store or a gas station and buy more. And that ended up being 3 to 4 days at a time. And okay, how far is it from point A to point B, and then determining breaking it up into manageable chunks.
Well, I know we didn't have this question asked, but I know there's a homeschool mom who's thinking, did you take picky eaters onto the trail?
So having 4 kids, I know everyone's different, but from the very beginning, we've never been short order cooks. So what is provided for you is what is provided for you. And, by about age 2.5, we were like, if you're going to refuse to eat it, that's
your next meal will be at, yeah.
Yep.
Correct. And so we don't have picky eaters. I mean, they have preferences. Naomi, particularly doesn't like cheese, and like there's certain meats that Abigail doesn't like, but they were hungry. And I don't know if you were to take picky eaters on trail, I think at some point that's going to break because you're so hungry. You're burning so many calories and you're consistently in a deficit. I mean, no matter how hard you try, you're going to be in a deficit. So on average, we were burning 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day. And it's hard to eat that much, like to be able to carry that much and eat it.
Obviously, you said your tent. So everybody had their own tent to carry, or did you all, how did you choose to do that?
Yeah, we had 3 tents so that we could pair up because especially as we're getting used to, life on trail, with Naomi and Gideon being the younger 2, we didn't put as much responsibility on them. So it took a little more training on their part to learn how to set up a tent, how to set up their sleeping bag, and then break it down each day. So, by being paired up, you had a buddy. We kept Naomi and Gideon with us the first month on trail as they got used to setting up and breaking down and packing their pack.
Yeah, David
and
was
everything.
Gideon, and then I was with Naomi for a little while. Each of our tents was a 3-person tent, so we had a little extra space.
Yep, so there's extra room
Mhm.
for gear to keep it in the tent with us overnight.
And then David and I carried a tent each, and then Abigail, our oldest, carried her and Madeline's tent, and then Madeline carried the poles for their
Yes,
tent to
we
kind of split it.
theirs up.
The logistics of this, did you all sit down and plan as a family? I mean, I can see a very rich environment to teach all sorts of logistical skills to kids in this process. But what was the first, oh, well, that's not going to work out for you all that you found? Sunscreen, right?
Yeah. We did get
I think
sunscreen.
we'll take a step back because I'm sure not everybody watching is an outdoorsy family, right? So we took it more as we're planning a big goal, and a big goal should scare you and get you out of your comfort zone a bit. So where we took the approach, we're going to do a long trail. Not everybody has that luxury and that ability to do so.
Mhm.
So this is just one approach that we took, but we did spend 5 years planning for it between factoring in work schedules, homeschool planning,
Saving enough money,
saving the money.
living very frugally to be able to save. We've had folks asked if we were just independently wealthy or something to be able to afford it. Absolutely not. No, we worked extra. I worked extra shifts. I'm a speech pathologist, so I took on extra jobs that way. We didn't do as many vacation kind of things to save the money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so and that we tried to incorporate the kids in every part of that. So we'd go on little camping trips and say, okay, here's how much food we have to plan, and we're planning meals ahead of time, and
Mhm.
we're planning our daily mileage, and these are some of the sites that we're going to see, and there's a level of adapting because you can't get weather reports in the middle of the forest most of the time, so you're just kind of studying weather patterns while you're at it.
Mhm.
And then obviously you have to listen to your body too. If it's telling you, I cannot go any further today,
Mhm.
that's part of it. You should make an effort to push yourself. But if you're injured or, push too long, too hard, you are going to need a break and rest.
Yeah, and Abigail is our only child with a phone, and she was able to she got it right before trail, and we put the app Far Out on her phone, which is, if you're in the long trail world, Far Out. It's a navigational tool, right, used for long trails. And so in the tent, at her tent at night, she and Madeline would look, which ended up being honestly why we finished as fast as we did. They would look at the next chunk of trail, and they'd say, the next morning we'd get out of the tent and we would announce, like, all right, guys, because we would have planned in our tent, we're looking at 14 miles today, and whatever, we're planning to end here. And Abigail or Madeline would say, well, actually, if we go 19 miles, we will end up at this little campsite, and then we can get to town a day earlier, or whatever. And so, the planning ended up being much more joint than separate, because they kind of pushed us along, and
They did.
they recognized they could push harder than they initially thought.
And that was one of the downsides. They started their own little like planning sessions
With
and
the younger two. Yeah.
and kids are much more resilient than we give them credit for. They recovered a lot faster than she and I did. So we'd wake up, they're packed up, packs on, ready to go, and she and I are just rolling out trying to pack our own stuff up.
Very stiff. Yeah.
There's the stiffness, the soreness, the muscle aches kicked in.
Mhm.
So yeah, they pushed us to finish faster because they were eager to get home by that point. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was that whole saying youth is wasted on the young is true.
Yeah.
You all made the decision to go from Georgia to Maine.
Mhm.
Why did you choose that as opposed to the other way around?
The vast majority of through hikers on the AT go south to north. They go northbound or NOBO.
Mhm.
And it's one, just proximity. We live in North Carolina, so it was a lot closer to get to Georgia. If something did go sideways, it's a lot easier to get home, on that first, honestly, half of the trail all the way through Virginia. Um, Resources and support along trail is a lot richer in the South, so we knew it'd be a good launching point. Also, we had family support, friend support, just a lot more access to that in the South. You're also, when you're going northbound, you're chasing spring. So you start kind of later in the winter season. And then as you're going north, it's just gradually warming up. We started earlier trying to avoid the bugs
the heat.
and the heat as much as we could. And for the most part, we did. We only had a couple weeks there that were difficult.
So it just going from north to south shifts your hiking season earlier in the year. If you're going north to south, you have to wait till the snow melts or
Starting June.
state parks open up in the north where there might be closed during the winter. So it would have delayed us, a later start in the year.
And it also lined up better with our homeschool. So in our working ahead, all 4 kids finished their homeschool year, their 24 to 25 homeschool year in February. Because we had just been working through the summer. So we did all of in North Carolina, you have to do standardized testing. So we did our standardized testing early February, wrapped up everything. I did all of my, transcript stuff for high school, had all that done, hopped on trail. And then when we got back at the end of July, we got to take a little break and then jump smoothly into the next school year. So that worked a little better than going June to November.
That makes sense. And for me, that NOBO is the only way to do it. But, in my head, I'm sure there are people going, why would you do it that way? So
also from a pure hiking perspective, there's challenges all the way through the trail. There are definitely hard parts everywhere. There are big climbs in the south. There's steep mountains. The north is just different. New England. So when you're in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, the rockiness of the trail, the technicality gets so significant that you're really preparing for it the whole way. To start there would have been much more difficult without having a background in bouldering and that kind of thing.
had you all done any, long day preparations? Like, had you gone out for a week at a time or something like that before with the kids?
So we started them off locally doing a smaller trail called the Art Loeb Trail. It's about 33 miles long.
They've done it twice. Yeah.
And so that was kind of their introduction to, backpacking. So they did it twice, but then in the immediate lead up to the AT in the fall before we left, so this would have been 2024.
Yeah, around Thanksgiving.
We did the Foothills Trail in South Carolina, and so it's about 75 miles. Granted, coming off of Hurricane Helene, half of it was closed.
Mhm.
So we ended up doing an out and back. So
30 miles out and turned around.
yeah, so we got about halfway and then turned around and went back. So it ended up being 60 miles. We did it over 4 days. And so that was our kind of what's called a shakedown hike, where you test your gear, test your setup, really getting familiar with your pack and each other, really.
We also got to test our mental fortitude there because it was November when we went, and on day 3 or 4, I think it was day 3, regardless, we were looking at the remaining miles and looking at the weather, and it was going to dip down into the 20s because we had planned on 5 days. It was going to dip down into the 20s that last night. And so we told the kids on ended up being our final morning on trail, hey guys, we can do the 13 or 14 we had initially planned, or we can do almost 19 and end at the car and go home and not sleep in the freezing cold. And not everybody was immediately on board. It was like, yikes, that's long. And we said, well, let's just try, let's walk. And, we have our houses on our backs, we'll be fine. And so we ended up, they got all on board by midday, wanted to be done. And they pushed that longest hike ever for them that last day.
So their reward was, we got home, unpacked, they got to sleep in their own bed.
We got
But then
hamburgers.
burgers and fries, and they pushed themselves for sure.
That's a good incentive, though, to keep pushing ahead. Yeah, my 3 of my kids did the Foothills Trail the summer before Helene, and 2 of them went to go do it last spring, and they were shocked at how much Helene had changed the topography.
Oh, I bet.
How different it looked. And there were places that they could not navigate through. I'm not sure that it's open yet, even, a year and a half after Helene. So,
well, and doing little, and that may not sound little, like a 60-mile hike is not little, but compared to 2,200 miles, doing that just gave us so many opportunities to experience things in kind of a microcosm way. Just, this is a little picture of the AT, because like that big day we had at the end of the foothills, we had a day in Maine where, because of weather conditions, we had to push 31 miles, and
Wow.
we just didn't have an alternative. We had to get up and over a series of exposed peaks, and there was severe thunderstorms, or there were severe thunderstorms moving in the next day, and we were cut off. There's very little access to the outside when you're in this last 100 miles. It's called the 100-mile wilderness.
Right.
And we got up at 4 a.m. that morning, and we're like, we just have to do it,
Yep.
and it was incredibly hard. We finished at 7 and just crashed, but finished.
But it did save us that next day from being the risk of exposure and a safety risk at that point.
So what was the biggest surprise for you all? And I'm not anticipating that you would each have the same answer. So what surprised you the most?
Logistical planning was a big piece of that. We're both big planners, whether it's planning for a school year, planning for a personal goal that we set. We like that challenge. But what we, I think, underestimated was the community around the Appalachian Trail. We were blessed far and above by they're called trail angels. They're people who regularly come out and help hikers out of the kindness of their heart. Whether that's, providing food, providing an area to sit down in the middle of their day,
transportation to town,
just providing financial resources. I mean, we never could have anticipated the help that we received while we were on trail. And then the fellowship with other hikers too. People that we didn't know a year ago are now close friends, and we're, going to a wedding in, 2 months with one of the guys we hiked with, or trying to plan a vacation together. It's, you get, because you go through all the trials and challenges of the trail
together.
You kind of draw closer with a community that you wouldn't have been part of otherwise. So the people are really what make it special.
So did you all have trail names?
Oh yeah. So as a family, we were the six-pack, or we are, I guess, the six-pack hikers. What was your trail name?
I was Remy. For those of you who have seen the children's movie Ratatouille, I did majority of all the cooking on trail.
I was going to say, that must mean you were the cook.
Yeah, I was the rat that cooked in shelters.
Yes. He got his name from me. I threw that name out and he liked it. Mine was Beacon. So I tended to, we did logistics together, but I tended to be the one keeping us on track and kind of guiding us along the way. Our oldest daughter, Serenity, because that's just her personality, very calm, very
awesome.
stoic. The next one, Madeline, was Sunshine. She tends to have a sunny disposition and optimistic and
bubbly personality.
Very much so. And then Naomi was Tunes, because she's singing on trail. So if she was singing, it was a good day. It
was a good day, right?
It was a good day. If it was a silent day, it was probably rainy or really hot or buggy. And then our youngest, Gideon, was Energizer, because we would end up at camp and he would still be running around. We could finish a 20-mile day and he'd be climbing trees. It's pretty unreal. He sleeps great, but he goes until he hits a wall and then crashes.
And so for
testosterone is a drug. Being the mother of 3 boys, I get it.
You understand?
Yeah.
And for those who may not know, on the long trails, a trail name is usually given to you by someone outside your group. Whether it's part of your history as a person, or a trait that stands out, or an unfortunate incident that you may or may not have caused.
Yeah, we hiked with a fellow. His real name is Ben, but his trail name was Bearbait, because his food was stolen by a bear in the Smokies. Another one of the guys we hiked with all the way to the end, Jeremy, was Bog Leg, because he kept falling into the bogs in Maine, up to his thigh in this muck.
Yeah.
And then, Sean was Straps, because he had forgotten to he climbed up a huge mountain with his bag, not clipped. And he was complaining about how hard the climb was, but he hadn't done up his straps. So, yeah, it's kind of fun. It's like an alter ego a little bit.
It is. My older son, his trail name on the CDT was Lark. And then my younger son is Hopper. And much for the same reason that your son is Energizer. So, yeah, he has boundless energy and he's never met a stranger. What would the kids say was their takeaways from the trail?
We asked them that question on a live when we were live on YouTube. I think it was Abigail that just talked about us. Like they were I mean, this is not to pat us on the back, but it's something that they've brought up that they just don't have friends with parents that would be willing to do something like this. Um, we were definitely we were definitely on an island, age and demographic wise, on trail, being a couple with kids in our 40s. That didn't really exist. So you were either hiking with single young adults, typically, retirees, um, college students. There were some couples, but I mean, nobody with kids, or very few, I guess I should say, because there was one other family that did it the same year we did. Um, but yeah, so.
And I think for them, they learned to test their limits more than they
Mhm.
would have just from the comfort of our own home. Like it pushed them beyond their normal boundaries to where they learned what they're made of
Mhm.
a little bit more.
And it also gave them so many opportunities to be strong in sharing their faith, because
Yeah.
when you're just going through life, you don't necessarily, especially as a kid in a conservative household where you're, going to church and you've got your little co-ops and things, you may not have as many opportunities. And they had so many wonderful conversations with folks on trail. And what we found is that people on trail were just very open to discussing anything. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's out there kind of seeking, um, and very open and I don't know, open-minded. It was refreshing to have conversations with folks without any kind of judgment or whatever.
The way that we planned for it, I'd say we didn't intend for it to be like a missions trip, with the
Mhm.
church. It just kind of evolved into a ministry as you're sharing conversation and breaking bread with other hikers and just trying to get to know who they are and what their background is. People were really open. And, I think that's another thing back to your question of what stood out most on trail or what surprised us is
Mhm.
everybody's willingness, because how often do you get 14 uninterrupted hours to walk through life with someone shoulder to shoulder over the course of miles through struggles together day after day and not open up?
Yeah, you get past the surfacey stuff pretty quick if you're walking alongside someone for, 10
Mhm.
plus hours a day.
Now, I have the impression that the AT has a lot more people on it than the CDT. There were periods of time where Duncan would go 8 or 9 days and not see another person when he was out there last summer. I don't get the impression that that would have been the equivalent for you all.
We had a few days here and there where we didn't see anybody.
Yeah, I think the longest we went was 3 days without seeing another person.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's definitely not as common.
No, and part of that is just population density. There's just a lot of people that live near the trail and come out and do day hikes. Um, and then part of the reason we had a few days is we started early and moved quickly. So we were kind of ahead of the main bubble or group of people. So I think that was the Vermont. I don't remember where it was, Pennsylvania, where we had some, or no, the
Yeah.
Massachusetts and Connecticut, where we had just some empty pockets of
Right.
no one was really around. So.
And back to the education piece too, there's so much history on the AT, but it takes you so close to many significant, you know, points, whether that's going through Harper's Ferry, you're there at the intersection of three rivers and
Mhm.
it's a lot of history in that area.
With the Civil War, yeah.
You go through pretty close to Gettysburg.
Yes.
We passed by, you can see New York City off in the distance. So if you want, you can hop off trail and go to New York City.
There were
Just
monuments on trail
Mhm.
referring to the Civil War and different sergeants and things.
Yeah.
Yep.
In your mind, what stands out to you? Which state stands out to you the most as, gee, I think I'd like to go back and spend some more time there?
Ooh, we were just talking about this the other day. I'll let you go first. I know what I'm gonna say. I have a couple, so I won't repeat yours.
I've wanted to go back to Massachusetts because right there at the Connecticut Massachusetts line, there's this beautiful alpine forest that you walk through called Sages Ravine. There's one area that stuck out to me that I want to go back to.
But it was pouring when we went through it. Maybe
It,
that's one you want to go back. It was raining hard.
Well, New Jersey surprised me the most on trail. I think surprised us on trail.
Mhm.
Just
Beautiful.
the beauty of New Jersey, which, having never been there, I didn't know to anticipate. Um, and then I think I'd go back to, Vermont in a different season. We went in the rainy, muddy season. I would not go back during that time. I'd want to see it more in the fall.
Yeah. For me, it's New Hampshire and Maine. So uh, they were so beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But we were at the very end of our hike. And at least for David and I, our bodies were breaking down. And so the experience of the hiking through there was very challenging, just physically. It would have been physically demanding regardless, but you were nursing a knee injury. I had plantar fasciitis and we were just so tired and sore. I'd like to go back and experience that fresh through the White Mountains, through the wilderness.
Yeah.
It's just so pretty.
Yeah,
Wow, Sally, and as a veteran of plantar fasciitis myself, I can't imagine hiking on trail with that.
It
And
started in
you
Virginia.
soldiered through. Oh my word!
Yes, it was rough. It was rough for sure. Yeah.
because one of the things they don't tell you about the long trail is that it's really 3 phases. So the first phase, your body is trying to figure out, what exactly are we doing here? What are you putting me through?
What are you doing to me?
It's like a shock to the system.
Yeah.
And then you get into the growth phase where you're super strong, you're pushing, every day kind of comes easily, your body's just kind of moving through. But by the third phase, you've pushed so hard for so long, it actually starts breaking down, regardless of how much rest you give it.
Yeah, it's kind of like pregnancy. That second trimester is awesome. Like you're feeling so great, you're cute, you got energy, you're not too, huge yet, and then you get to that last trimester and you're just ready for it to be done. And so
Right.
we did get to that point where it was like we were on a mission to finish. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And did you all go all the way to the top of Katahdin?
We did.
We did. It took us 148 days. So we finished on July 23rd. I was going to say 7th, July 27th or 3rd. Gracious. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And so then how did you guys get home from there? What was the plan to get back from Maine?
Well, David's parents and my parents came up to see us, not at the summit. So my mom was very disappointed to learn that the summit wasn't something she could just like drive up to. It would have been nice because she wanted to be at the end. They wanted to be like have their signs and stuff at the end, but they waited at the base. So the last 5 miles, you go up, turn around, and come back. And so they had come up and they took us into Bangor, Maine, where we flew back home from there.
If someone is watching us or listening to us and they have this desire, what would be the first thing you would say? Do this first as you plan to do something like this with your family.
Start simple. You gain experience, you gain skills along the way. So don't try to tackle it all in one piece. We took 5 years to plan for it. Not everybody has to do that. But I think that was necessary as we gave the kids and challenged them more, with each as they grew. It takes a while to accumulate all the gear, but I think just doing it, keep it simple, do what you're capable of, even if it's just day hikes as a family. Trying to figure out your water, your supplies, endurance level, learning each other while you're out on trail. Just don't overcomplicate it right from the start.
Yeah, because really any long trail is just a series of little backpacking trips. Right, from town to town. So if you can build up to a point where you're comfortable doing 3 or 4 days away from town, that's all it is. It's a series of that. So beyond that, you're just having to plan for the time away from work, the time away from school, but you're just doing a series of little backpacking trips.
Well, I think you all have such a unique experience. You got to know your children in a way that a lot of parents don't have the opportunity to know their children. And I think that's a precious opportunity that you made memories with your kids they're never going to forget. So in these last couple minutes, what advice would you offer to folks who have watched this video with us? What would you say to them?
For anybody who's got young kids at home, parenting's a marathon, it's not a sprint. We're at kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. We're out of the the early infancy days. We're more looking towards we're counting down the number of days we have left with our kids at home.
Not eagerly. Like it's not, I mean, I'm excited for them to fly, but it's also kind of bittersweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It is
I
indeed.
think,
Mhm.
just display patience,
Mhm.
even when you don't want to. Is give your kids kind of the benefit of the doubt and try to study them, ask questions, get to know them, because, you know, as we're learning, you think 18, roughly 18 years before they leave the house is a long time, but it's not.
Mhm.
So
It
Yeah.
is not.
Yeah. And just I don't know, this is just a general parenting thing, but something that's really I've been more convicted of in recent years, but just making sure your kids never feel like an inconvenience.
mm,
Um, when they need you, let them have you, if they need to talk, this has happened much more even recently. We've got daughters that like to talk really late at night because that's when they're done with everything for the day. Their mind is kind of clear and they've got the deep questions and the hard things, and we're tired. Um, but those are the moments that really solidify your bond with your kids, is those conversations, and when they need something and you just say yes, like right now, let's do it, let's talk. Um, yeah, just making
yeah.
sure they don't feel like they are an inconvenience, because they're not.
No, that's a good
We
point.
prayed for them, we
I
wanted
love
them.
that. That's the best of advice. We are only promised, we're never promised our next breath. And to be able to keep those accounts short and enjoy our children, because they really do grow up too quickly.
Yes.
I want to thank you both for joining me today. I want to thank you for sharing your story. I was inspired. Thank your kids for the experience that they had. We will put the YouTube channel in the show notes so folks can find their way to your adventure. And thank everyone who came in and joined us for this conversation today. Thank you for allowing us into your living room. We appreciate it so very much. And we can't wait to hear what your next journey is. It'll be
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having us
everybody.
on. Yeah.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for joining us. We're glad to be a part of your educational community. You can help us grow our community even more by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the show wherever you may be hearing this. Don't forget that you can access the show notes and watch a recording at demilearning.com/show or on our YouTube channel. We'll see you again next time. Until then, keep building strong foundations for lifelong learning.